I just wanted to make a bit of an observation, because it's been really interesting over the years how, as a voluntary sector organisation, there's been this shift towards being more kind of more commercial, or looking at how we can learn from the commercial sector and from businesses, as non-profit organisations can kind of learn from different ways of raising alternative finance and things like that. But I think what's quite interesting is that it can go the other way, because as non-profit organisations, we get a lot of experience from raising money through grants, through various different alternative income streams. And actually I think there can be we've got quite a good mix in the room today, but that kind of sharing between commercial and non-commercial goes kind of both ways. So when you're looking at, say, business models or business planning as a commercial organisation, to kind of approach the non-profits that are out there, or the organisations, voluntary sector organisations that are quite experienced of kind of looking at funding strategies around raising money through grants and things like that. I just think that's something that quite often things aren't sort of turned that way around. Over the years, it's been a lot more focusing on how non-profits can be more like businesses, and actually I think a lot can be learned from the other side.
I think so. I mean, have you explored social enterprise bonds and things like that?
Yeah, so I mean, we're always looking at every possible way of bringing money in to be a sustainable organisation, and so I've spent the last 3 years trying to be more commission ready, to like apply for contracts and things, and yet now I'm hearing that things are kind of almost going the other way to be back to grant funding, and it's kind of thinking all of those really intensely boring days of training about commissioning. I'm really glad I've put my time into that. But it's, I mean, there's so many different things out there. I mean, like the financing stuff. So I've heard Sarah talk before. Another thing in Southampton, it's really interesting to look at that, because as a non-profit organisation, you kind of think, loans, that's something we don't really want to go, but actually it's a really interesting, valid kind of route, especially around looking at addressing cash flow and stuff like that.
Yeah, and especially where it's unsecured. So the social enterprise bonds are unsecured, and you have to have a business plan that persuades them after 5 years they might get their money back. But the sort of people putting money into those funds are like the people I talked about whose money is managed by an asset management company. They're people who would be minded to give money to charity anyway, and think this is a better way, that maybe after 5 years, each year I'm going to get 5% anyway as a return, and I'm going to get a tax write-off of 25% as well. So even after 5 years, I've got 50% of my money back, and even if I only get another 25% of my money back, well, that's probably money I would have given away to charity anyway, and I'll probably stick with these people because that's not bad. I'll feed it back in. And I think, banks, well, Triodos especially, it's really interesting exploring that. They're sitting on funds, and remember, they're making money out of raising these funds. So they're going to their clients and saying, right, let's put a bond together for £250,000. They're going to cream off above that £38,000 in management fees and structure. So they're motivated to do it. Of course, their clients are going to expect them to manage their money. And of course, you are to some degree paying for that money. But at the end of 5 years, no one's going to sue you. It's a risk they've taken. And the worst that's going to happen is you pay back 25% of the money through 5% interest each year. And that's just, I think, a balancing thing. Of course, we all want free money, but unfortunately, there's not enough free money to go around. So I think we touched on this earlier. It's going to be a balance of equity and free money, and that's part of the business plan. What do we think we can afford? When does it become punitive to commit to having to pay this money back? But I think more and more there will be that mixed financing going on. Other questions? Other observations from the...
Well, just to add to it, I think what you and Sarah have said is right. You have got this mix. It is emerging. You've got this mix, and it's what's appropriate to you as an organisation or as an individual, what sits with your values and the values of your organisation and the vision you're trying to create. It is a mix, and you've got to blend it, you know, and that blending, I think, is quite a maybe difficult thing for certain age groups, like ourselves maybe, to get our heads around, that traditionally this is how it's always been. But then you look at, I mean, I partly blame Oxfam, etc. for this, in how they've evolved, or had to evolve their model to become this sustainable sort of behemoth monster, if you like. And everybody's had to follow suit. You know, you've got the government now with their language as a cultural economy, etc. It changes things in the way that we present it, in the way that we picture it and frame it in our own minds.
And I would add to that, think about scale, because sometimes raising £10,000 is every bit as difficult as raising £150,000. And this comes down to organisations and the management of their money. £10,000 takes an organisation just as much time to manage as £150,000. So scale is very important. When you think about the money you want, then you match it to the kind of organisation who would be more interested in giving that scale. Obviously, the more money you want, the more complicated probably your business plan is going to be, and it's going to have to be convincing. But there are people out there who are quite happy to punt £150,000, £200,000 if the proposition, going back to one of the P's, if the proposition is right.